Hi everyone, so today we're going to be talking about the Visible Armband 2.0. And actually I have a lot of good news to share about this. So this is essentially an illness tracker. So as opposed to a fitness tracker, this is designed with ill and disabled people in mind. All it is essentially is a heart rate tracker, so it tracks your heart rate and it also tracks the variability in your heart rate. The variability is a bit like an overall score of how you're doing. And it's very basic. It can't tell you everything about how you are, but it is quite a generalised basic score of how you are. So it tracks your heart rate continuously, and then to get the variability score you do a check-in. They call it a morning check-in, but if you can only do it in the evening or whatever time of day, it would work and you could take that score at that point, but we'll come back to that. So I wanted to start by talking about the big differences between this one and the old one. And the biggest difference is that I can use this one. And the reason for that is because the band itself has changed. You don't have to take the device out to charge it anymore. You charge the whole thing. It just stays like this and you charge it. So no fiddliness anymore. And then on top of that, instead of having to charge it every day for an hour, this one only takes an hour of charge every 4 to 5 days. Or if you want to, what I tend to do is charging it every 2 to 3 days for like 15 minutes here and there. And I find that even with those 15-minute bursts of charge, it still lasts multiple days. So for me, because I couldn't keep on top of the charging of the last one, or I'd take it off, charge it, then I'd not be well enough to put it back on, then I'd forget to put it back on. With this, I can get a few days of use at a time out of it. But if you really wanted to, you could literally keep this on for the full 5 days if that's what you wanted to do, and then just charge it at the end of those 5 days. That would work as well. In my last video, I said that where it sits higher up on your arm, if you're wearing like cuffed pajamas, you would have to take off the sleeve of your pajamas to take this on and off, and you would have to do that at least once a day with the old band to charge it, whereas with this band, pajamas for say 5 days and keep the band on, which is a big improvement and means this can help a lot more people. And then going into the big one, which is, has this band made me feel better? Most people have asked me that. Do I feel better because of the band? The answer is mostly no, and that may be surprising with how positive I feel towards the band, and that is purely because I do see this as a monitor, not as a treatment, not as a cure. It is a monitor, and actually it monitors heart rate really well. It has the potential to monitor other things as well. Sorry about my speech there. But how it monitors other things, so things like sleep, symptoms, stuff like that, you input your symptoms, you'll rate them out of say 1 to 4, and it's up to you to input those symptoms. It's more like a diary kind of thing. So that's a bit what it's like. It's I've completely lost my train of thought there. Normally I would be able to remember it. I would think about it until I remember it, but I'm not going to remember what I was saying there. But essentially you track your own symptoms and stuff, so it's much more like a tracker than something that's actually going to make those symptoms feel better in a lot of cases. The thing it's probably best for is conditions that directly affect the heart rate, so things like POTS, inappropriate sinus tachycardia. You get an alert when your heart rate goes above a certain threshold, and that threshold is customized to you. So it gets to know you for 4 days when you first put this on. It gets to know your baseline, and during this phase it also asks you to track your heart rate variability for 4 days in a row if you can. So in this heart rate variability check-in, the band will be measuring your actual heart rate variability, You input factors like your sleep score, but again, it's a bit like a diary. You're just saying how you feel. It doesn't actually track the sleep. And I can't remember what the other factors are. It might be how you're feeling or something like that. But again, it's more of a diary based thing. The only actual, can't think of the word, the only thing the band tracks in that moment is the heart rate variability, and that gives you a score. The score will be out of 5, and it supposedly tells you how your body is doing overall. And so from that, you're supposed to sort of plan your day according to that. In theory, if you got a rubbish score like a 1, you would want to go carefully on those days. And if you got a score like 5, then you could do more. And for some people this works quite well, but there are a lot of limitations to it. For example, if you're in a long crash and you're continuously checking in with similar symptoms and similar scores, it counts that as a level of stability, and it recommends that you can do a bit more on those days, which you won't be able to because you are stable in a really low state. But the band will think that that stability is a good thing, even though you're stable in a terrible way, if that makes sense. Not even stable, you're consistent. That's the difference. It might think you're stable, but actually you're just consistently bad. But I really want the biggest takeaway of this to be that it is really good for heart rate tracking and heart rate pacing, which means by nature it is going to be quite good for POTS patients and also potentially people with inappropriate sinus tachycardia. It can be good for other people as well. Someone asked me a question and they said, if your heart rate is always normal, will it help with pacing still? Yes, to some extent. It will still detect when your heart rate is high for you. So even though it's within normal limits, it can still detect that. So for example, even if you're bedbound and you roll over, typically that would make someone's heart rate go up. And it will still detect things like that. If you're reaching for things in bed, typically that would make your heart rate change. The band would be able to detect that. So you might have a day, maybe if you're in a lot of pain, you might be rolling around more without realising it. The band would notice, because it would notice that it is slightly higher heart rate for you, even though it's still within normal limits. And now we're just going to go through some questions that I've got. So the first one is, how long does it take to set up? So it's very easy and very quick to set up. In terms of how long it takes, I feel like it only took a couple of minutes, and then it tracks you for the first 4 days. If you can, you're advised to do your check-in every day. The heart rate variability thing is an interesting one, and it's not necessarily a fault of the band and of how it's done, because it is a good overall indicator of your health. Like, it's known for that, but it just doesn't always correlate, and that's something to bear in mind. So I've had okay-ish scores, but I've been hospitalised. I've had okay-ish scores, but I've been collapsed on the floor, unable to get up. So it doesn't always correlate, and some people find it works better than others. The next one is, do any of the biometrics it tracks reflect cognitive exertion? The simplest answer is no. Now, there are going to be cases where cognitive exertion will be reflected in someone's heart rate and in their heart rate variability, and obviously it would show for them. But for a lot of people, that cognitive exertion just doesn't show in heart rate, and because this only tracks heart rate, it doesn't show. So for the majority of people, no, this isn't a good tool for cognitive exertion. And then they said, is it still helpful if bedbound? I've split this one into two. Is it still helpful if bedbound? Essentially yes, because it tracks your norm and it gets to know you for those 4 days, and it continues to after that. So yes, if you're bedbound, it's still really helpful. I hope I shared before, but again, it might have got lost in that clip. Even if you are rolling over in pain, that would typically track that, because it would affect your heart rate. So yeah, it is still helpful if you're bedbound. And then they said, and is it helpful if you crash from cognitive exertion? less so, because it's not tracking that. It's really not very good at tracking that. Someone said, is it worth the cost? Only you can know. I will say, the question I'd ask yourself is it worth it to you to have a monitor? Is it worth it to you to monitor your health and to be able to see things? You can see patterns. For example, if you started a new medication and it affected your heart rate, this would be a very simple way of knowing, and you wouldn't have to log in anything. You could just, this is how I use it actually. I don't track very much in it at all. I just click into the app and I just see how my day was the day before, or I just click in and see how my day is going. But if you started a new medication and it affected your heart rate, you'd see that too. But in terms of is it worth the cost, only you can know. But yeah, I do think it's really expensive. I do consider cancelling it, but then only you can really know if it's worth it for your circumstances. But as I say, it's best not to see this as a treatment. It is a tracking, monitoring tool, and so that's what you're paying for. Does it need charging? As we said, yes, but only every 5 days. Or if you want to, you can do it for shorter bursts every couple days. Is it waterproof? Yes, it is. So you can shower with the band on, but then the question is, do you want to? Because then you've got this wet band on your arm. So yes, it's waterproof, but you've only got the one band, so do you want to? That's something that you'd have to think about. Are you going to take it off to shower, or are you going to put up with having the wet band? The next question is exactly what I would be asking, which is how much time and energy does it take to use it? So a lot of people are really tech savvy, and you can document so many things with this. You can track, if you want to, your daily activities, so everything you do in the day. You can see how that affects your heart rate by logging it. You can also track symptoms, and then you can have your symptom diary on there if you want to. You can take your HRV every day if you want to, but they are all if you want to features. How I use it is that I wear the band. I do take my HRV, not as much as I'd like. I wish I was doing it every day. The reality is that I don't do it every day, and that takes about a minute. So even on my day that I do the most with the band, I'm spending about 2 minutes a day. 1 minute on my HRV and maybe 1 minute for 15-second check-ins throughout the day. For the most part, how I use it is that it's just on my arm. My phone alerts me when I'm in my overexertion period, and then I can just respond. I don't have to have my phone. I don't have to do anything. All I might do is, if I am sitting up in bed, I will lay down if I can. So essentially, very little. If you don't want to do very much, you don't have to do very much. Some people would say the more you put into it and the more you track, the more you get out of it, but it's not how I feel, because I'm 10 years into being unwell. I just feel like I just don't need to be tracking my headaches and stuff at this point. Some people will get a lot out of that, and others will be happy to use it how I use it, which is that I don't really do anything. I don't have to do anything. For example, if your phone is on loud, then it can just bleep, and then you don't have to swipe away the notification. You just hear it, just alerts you, and you just respond if you can. And if you can't respond, you don't. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go into the app every day if you don't want to. It does mean you won't get that daily pacing score, but you don't necessarily even need that. You could just, as I do a lot of the time, I don't log into the app. I just let it alert me throughout the day, and I respond to those alerts, but again, not by going on my phone, just by, if I need to, lying down. So it really takes very little. And that was our last question, so I'll leave it there. This video has got long again, so I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry for the confusion. As I say, it was because I had part of it was because I'd already filmed this, and so I cannot remember which was in the first clip. Also, of course, I have severe ME, POTS, EDS, and all of this comes for me with a lot of brain fog, and so if there's anything that you want to take with a pinch of salt, please do. If there's anything that you think you can infer what I meant better than I said it, please do. And I hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.